Good evening from the Kidnapster Diaries. This evening I am going to discuss several things. And I thought I'd start off with trying to figure exactly different perspectives of my state of reality, therefore able to understand the psychology behind my psychoanalysis of various perspectives of niche mob factions pertaining to generating me being the prime source of power, credibility, cash, different sorts of things. Therefore, that opens the door for interpretive perspective as characterizations, motives for certain actions or inactions, and then therefore, well, it's a shakedown. For the most part, it's nothing more than a shakedown. There's all sorts of things that seem to be going on. It goes back to when you desecrate the victim. It's like when you're trying to dehumanize the victim. It's that precedence, the stampede trample precedence that is just destroying the credibility of the person that is being utilized. Therefore, it seems either that those that are doing the harm's way are therefore validated, or lessens the. It's that, or there's got to be motive, and there's a lot of motives, and there's a lot of methods, and that's sort of what I going on to. A lot of it has to do with stealing my face, the shakedown street sort of mentality, or trying to know your limitations, like the Truman Show, like I said before, teaching me to not try to escape. They're trying to teach me to not want to escape. Therefore, it makes it easier on those that are containing me and utilizing my assets in lieu of of me, which I am totally against. I mean, I've uncovered so much that it's bewildering that any of this, like I said, I don't even have an explanation for it other than the USA is a lot deeper in than anyone thought. And what happened, in my estimation, was it was kind of like that Adam Sandler movie, Just Go With It. People just went with it's that Joker mentality. The mob learned pro bono co-conspirators is what they were after. They were truly after pro bono co-conspirators. And the way to do that is to take myself. They had to handicap. One of the reasons I'm handicapped is so I can be manipulated and moved around readily, therefore, and easily. Therefore, it justifies or puts me in certain positions. So they use me as bait, literally as bait. So you got the mob hacks me up, whacks me into pieces, and they plug in all, or stabs and the sacred, holy murder weapons and stabs and spears because of the wounds that produce so much precious energy and assets. So therefore, then they drag me around because once they did all of this, they had to figure a way to spread the guilt. Spread the guilt is a way to then therefore make it a lot easier. So, well, the problem is you had a bunch of small timers doing this. It started out, in my estimation, I wasn't allowed to grow up because of certain things. They didn't want me to get very big because they wanted to be able to control. There's the master syndrome, I call it, and it has created more trouble than anything because everybody wants to be the master, and it creates a lot of animosity. Whereas though I have a estate to manage, an estate plan that I should have managed, others have jumped in lieu of lieu, and then therefore are utilizing assets and handling my estate. And so I am unable to competently manage the planned economy of my estate because other people are utilizing it. So there's a big spread. That's what the new term, the spin doctor manipulation is the spread, the estate spread. So what they've got is they've got me and what I'm actually worth globally on the open market, which is a number. And then they've got me, which I have cash valuation and control over. So there's a big spread, and that's the target in the spread. It's like if you look at the Mississippi, they want to get the most. They want the top to cross. They're as greedy and fat as they can get it. They want to screw me the hardest and most that they can and make the most money out of it. That's their target, in my estimation. So there's all that spread in between from what I get paid, what I'm actually, my piddly pennies that are in my wallet worth billions. So from the billions to what I have control over is a spread that can be used by factions of the mob. That's motive. And method is how they acquire all this. And there's fights and wars going on over that spread of what I can't control because I'm handicapped, stunted, unable to use as a ramp, a tramp ramp, that I can't even get control competently. So there's all this big spread that's being fought over by these various factions. And people have lost their fucking minds in this greed battle over my spread. And it's funny because Ashton Kutcher did a movie where he was a gigolo, and he's sitting in a pool, and behind him is all of L.A. stretched out. And it's true. I mean, there's that many resources, but I am not allowed to use my spread, my estate, because the masters have figured a way to Jew me down and screw me. And so they're going to use it, but I'm not allowed to. They figured out all these loopholes. But what I came up with, they probably used $1 trillion worth of energy. We're talking about 2 degrees here, 2 college degrees, mine and my sister's. And so, it's more, but we're talking about billions and billions of dollars over a couple of college degrees. But I'm not able to pay it off, so therefore our bodies and our power and our birthrights are then being held. And that's motive. That's the motive. That's why we're Jew down cheap, JV, we're kept kids. Kidnapster motive is that spread and the access to this public property as it's deemed and distributing it to all these different things. So there's certain factions. There's all sorts of ways to get at it. There's a bunch of people that have shot me and stabbed me and speared me and picked my pocket and well, when Baton Rouge was trying to, or Louisiana was stunning my development, and I couldn't, competently, I didn't have health care for a lot of years. I couldn't go to a doctor or a dentist for many, many years because I literally couldn't afford an oil change. Like I said before, I was living on next to nothing, barely alive for many, many, many years where I couldn't afford anything. And I admit, I am a little bit lackadaisical. I could have used handlers. But, I'm only worth $1 billion fucking dollars. Make the boy go out and do it on his own. Be self-reliant, proud. That's the smart way to pick that fucker's pocket. So, of course, being worth $1 billion, and I didn't know this at the time. Because I did all this on the self-reliant was digging in the backyard trying to figure out what it was actually worth. And like I said, this is all theoretical speculation, but nobody else has done anything about it. It's just they decided, well, we found this loophole where we've got access to one of the biggest banks in the world. We're not going to manage it. We're just going to loot the place and say, fuck you, the rest of the world. We got the most special, sacred fucking pigs and cows and dogs in the world, and they are going to be the fattest. That sort of mentality. So, that seems to be the general assertion of how this predicament takes place, because nobody wants to handle it. Nobody wants to open the can of worms of managing the estate, so they figure ways to screw the spread. That, wide open longhorn spread, fat of the land, this prodigy. And I did understand that to a degree, but I didn't know any, I did, that's about when I got just beat into the fucking ground. Literally. Like I said, just beat into the ground, left and right. And it goes back to, in my estimation, The aristocracy loves getting screwed by their pets. They're in love with getting screwed by their pets. They don't even know it that they are. But by allowing this to go on for so long, well, that's where it goes back to, this is that loop to the mob has figured a way, because I am a high value target and I had a lot of credibility, so they figured ways to use me. And so what did they do was drag me around to areas as a joker. That's where you get into the whole joker mentality. So then I was dragged around as a joke because I was well-known commodity, being just humiliated and screwed and all these sorts of terrible fucking jobs. And, you know, it just literally starving. The funny, I mean, not funny, it was actually horrific. Living 2 blocks away from Commander's Palace on Louisiana and St. Charles Avenue, and I was literally starving to death. My experience from New Orleans, as I can remember, is only thing I could do was go for walks. I took a lot of walks, and I would walk either all towards Tulane and Audubon Park, and this was usually late at night, or most of the time I'd walk that way during the day, or I'd walk into the French Quarter. And I usually had zero money. I would have like $1 a day to get a candy bar. And that was splurging if I had $1 a day, or if I really was, if I had a job that month, I could go afford to get a 40 a malt liquor. Maybe some Old English or a Schlitz Bull or something like that, the 40 a malt liquor. I mean, for $1.75 or whatever that was, because there's no way I could afford wine, from Cristal right there next to the Commander's Palace in New Orleans on Royal Street. Fucking joke. So I used to walk into New Orleans, starving, literally, walk past all the restaurants and study the menus and just smell everything, just literally starving, because I was living on. I used to eat a lot of those boxes of Zatarans, beans, and rice. Some of the time I could afford meat. Most of the time it was just a thing of beans and rice. So that I was living large. But they were either teaching me to be real fucking tough or to kill myself, which was most probably they wanted me to off myself, because they wanted to cut my mom out of the loop. I understand it to a degree. Her family is fucking nuts, without a doubt. So, but they would have done nothing with my family. If I would have killed myself, my little brother, they would have kept nobody else would have said a word, because nobody else has said a word except for me, and they're just fucking ignoring the whole thing. So, obviously, then they had to figure ways to screw me. So, that's when you get into the possessions, being what they've got, the schemes going after that spread and the possessions going after the spread. And, well, it's like a gift. It's like a gift. Well, it's this alchemy spin miracle variable because of the spread. Me being worth all of this, and I'm not using it. So then those that have rights through my possessions as keys, access to my assets. They won't help me get access to them, but they will figure ways to scrooge their way into it and and that's why they wanted to make me hate it's these people really, really, really hate me. I mean, without a doubt, this is true. Just it's bewildering. They want me to hate giving gifts because they want people to screw me. The people that I give gifts to will turn around and screw me with the gifts and try to destroy me. So I will hate giving gifts, like the Grinch sort of mentality, because I call it the Scrooged effects, the alchemy Scrooge effect. So you take something. The mirror seems to be a big one, because you got billions of dollars in unused assets, untapped, realized assets. They're sitting pretty. So people figure out ways to use them. So the communal networks attach themselves and jump through the loops in order to get it. So the hacks and the networks are accessing this spread pool of assets that I'm not allowed to use because I have to be handicapped, unable to, because I got to protect the scheme. So they take these Scrooge values and they'll take like this mirror I gave my sister. It was one of those things where I didn't know what was going on. I had been in the middle. I went to Colorado to write a book. I wrote 2 books. I co-wrote a book about opening a restaurant, like a 200-page book that we never got published. But I worked on that, and then I worked on a novel, which wasn't that great. It could be, and I could go back and rework it, but it was a real. I don't know what I was doing. I mean, I honestly didn't have any. I've never once had. Well, what they wanted to do was, since everybody is more special than me. Everything matters more than me. That's what I call the omega effect, or the interpretation of criminal intent, obviously. So, I did used to skip classes a lot because it was frustrating. I just had trouble paying any attention. I never met anybody. I used to go to, you'd think, oh, going to class, being Louis at LSU would be great. Everybody's all American and all that stuff, but never met anyone. I don't ever, I remember, I think the entire time I was at LSU, I never met hardly anyone in classes. At the school, the other school I graduated from, I met a few people. Never met any. I spent a lot of time in the library. That was about it. But so I'd go to class most of the time, and I had obviously but I was drinking heavily. I was bad alcoholic, and so I was hungover a lot of the time, and had ADHD, and then just didn't get it. Had a lot of trouble. Nobody ever helped me at all. There's a funny show, that movie with Tina Fey called Admissions, where she's like, she said something looking at his transcript, or something derogatory looking at his transcript. He said, "But I'm worth $1 billion." That's on the trailer. That's the same sort of mentality. But they didn't care. They didn't want me to know, in my estimation. They had to make the choice of letting me know, and I had, like I said, they could have handled it a whole lot different. There should have been something. But I mean, I never had any competent friends. I had people that would hang around and party with, but never had, anyone that tried anything, or, it was very, very strange when you look back. Obviously, the plan was bury my body deep and brainwashed to where play dumb, and therefore all of my power would transfer into those purple graduation robes. But then the stupidity, and I am crass and pissed off because I'm hungry. It's hunger pains from being cooped up here for so many years and not accomplishing anything, while I'm giving away losing literally billions of dollars in the middle of a war that these idiots don't even recognize. So, yeah, I mean, the opponents have got to feel bad to a degree, but the stupidity level of just giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, while they're getting some, but they're losing so much more. They could have had, if they would just have built a competent structure, they could have had so much more and not have. They've got a huge hangover coming because we're talking about wasted. I mean, we're talking about epic wasted. And I think it goes back to the premise of nobody tried to correct me, so they are programmed to look idiotic and similar to the fashion that they were all laughing at me. So then they turn around and were programmed into that idiotic mentality, and they didn't really have any choice in the matter, which was stupid because it required destruction of muscle in order to be able to facilitate a similar perspective, which is going to make it harder. It's a ploy, in my estimation. So the Scrooged value. So they take this mirror. I was writing a book. I was with a girl. We were driving back from Colorado, and we stopped in New Mexico. And I was, looking for, my sister was graduating in a few days, and we were at this Indian reservation shop, and I found this really nice silver mirror. I thought, well, it's an interesting thing, and there was nothing else between there and all the way to Dallas, and we were late and that sort of mentality. So, it's like, well, interesting. So we get the mirror and go to Dallas, and I don't even see my sister. I think I left it outside of her apartment in a car on Potomac Street or something. And the perspective of that is, what is a mirror worth? Well, it was a silver mirror, 47 AG. Oh, it bought in New Mexico, state number 47, and it was a graduation gift from SMU, and it was the year my father was born is 47. So then, the Scrooge mentality, let those wheels work and figure in ways to manipulate this. That's $1 billion gift. That's easy, a few $1 billion. The thing about it is when you look at, you've got to be able to see, I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of depth perception, perspectives, things that have to be relatable. And so hopefully, the problem is, it goes back to like the purple gowns from it's the graduation diploma as a weapon to do wrong, and the system will fix it for you because, hey, we got the piece of paper. Regardless of the science or math logic, there are ways to manipulate science or math using pooled assets or pools of that sort of mentality. So then it goes into, there's all sorts of strange ways around loopholes, and that's what it seems to be, loopholes in to exploit because of all sorts of factors. So this mirror then therefore is a unlimited credit card, and I even wrote to her, I was like, look, cancel any charge cards attached to that mirror. I said, well, it's not just her though, it's her crew, because they all have connectivity through networks to sorts of things that are utilizing her energy and her perspective, and that therefore in case of, so that's just one sort of, but there's all sorts of ways to scrooge any sort of thing, but you can figure ways to manipulate anything into anything just about. And yeah, so it's trying to, I mean, just amazing. I mean, these kids today don't have a clue, or it doesn't make any sense. Somebody is really, they're gonna play dumb and say we just didn't know, but there was, I mean, something's got to be going on to the degree of figuring. I mean, literally, there's to not know what's going on, to believe what's actually going on in the media, or to be so self-absorbed in the busyness of the internet, losing all perspective. I mean, it's beyond any comprehension because they're just giving and giving and giving, and it's my land and my plots, but they're, through, or to a degree, they're giving away plus their own. I'm saying for some of it, mine, because nobody will, I have no percentage. See, the people that have screwed me over already are deathly afraid of me ever succeeding or accomplishing anything. Therefore, they want to try to wrestle and keep me pinned down in order to protect themselves, because they screwed up. They made mistakes, and that's why I was hacked so far down the ladder. People had screwed me. They knew they screwed me, and I was waking up. They were afraid of me waking up, and so they had to protect themselves by hacking me and burying me way, way down in the rank. That's why this game grid was hacked upon me, to where I'm forced to play it, even though I pay for it. That's the nonprofit casino. I should be able to rise above it and protect myself because I have so much this spread that's being manipulated that I'm not allowed to use. See, if I could use it and protect it and build a competent structure and shut off some of the free plugs, then it would be, you wouldn't have a lot of the economic problems you had today. So, then the problem is, well, there's all these loopholes around it. what they're trying to do is alter the state. That's why the diplomas are worshipped, whereas the keys, and regardless of, you can mutate something to be seen by utilizing power. If you've got enough power, you seem infallible. And by using my power, and I'm only saying there's a big bunch more connected to me, but I am the tip of the iceberg. That's what, I'm only looking at the tip exposed to the iceberg. There's a bunch more that's kind of like a network that sort of funnels down this program that I've been hacked in order, and that's what they did. They hacked me and my family to funnel down all this program code to this big whole iceberg network. Therefore, they want to keep it intact in order to keep on the flow happening. So, you've got all these alterations. And what I do also is add value. So there are certain clones that have accounts within my that plug into me, utilizing me probably through Orange County. The whole Orange thing ties in. The Orange County Titans, the Louisiana Pacific Titans obviously plug into me somehow. Probably through, well, the MikeTV thing. MikeTV from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka. MikeTV watched a lot of TV. TV being Tennessee Volunteers. It's very, very healthy for me to watch TV because you can manipulate. That's where you get into the manipulation of precedence, therefore validating the allotment of time. That's one of the reasons I hang pictures up here, is because I'm trying to add depth to because rather than just sitting here and wasting my life, at least it adds depth to my career as a creator. Therefore, hopefully I watch a lot of TV and I spend a lot of time on Twitter and Facebook my time on Twitter is strictly escapism and documentation. Furious that I wake up, I lay in bed and I'm like, it's just like beating my head against the wall to get out of here. But I'm ignored. I'm ignored by the media. I'm ignored by the agencies. I'm ignored by everybody for the most part. Just left here as kidnapped or hostage. So therefore, the MikeTV in the bubble, the Todd Lubitsch bubble. MikeTV, I spend a lot of time watching TV and idols on TV and sport. Therefore, my big spread total wealth is worth a ton of TV time. So therefore, the things that I watch, the sporting channels or the movies that I watch, so therefore the idols that I watch, must be, since the precedence is set that I watch so much TV, that therefore then they must be worth so darn much. So that transfers power from me to power to the people that I'm watching, even though I would rather be just about anywhere. I would rather be traveling. I don't know what's going to be worth. I mean, there's a whole world out there, and I'm sitting in a moldy, fucking nasty Savannah garage because I'm ignored so I can pay for a bunch of fucking deadbeat bums, free energy, and drugs because they're addicted dope fiends, deadbeat fucking bums. So I got to pay for that. So I waste my life, and that's why I'm in Savannah, because all the churches, therefore, gives them a little bit of that. So even though there's a lot of other people using my energy that don't have anything to do with the church, because of the church is there, even though the church should be smart enough to say, if we help him out, therefore, but the church is a small percentage, in my estimation, of a lot of the other energy that's out there that's utilizing my power. So there's photosynthesis, and then there's so the transfer of my energy power from my estate to these other factions, therefore, that increases their valuation. And because of the precedence set by the MikeTV, watching a lot of TV makes it so valuable. It's like my father played a lot of golf. So therefore, golf, that's why golf rules are, just worshipped so much. They're using that, and they always use it against us. I would like to audit all the rules that are inflicted upon my life, and I would like to audit and I'm worth it to where most people, it doesn't, and I'm not saying that to be mean, I'm just saying that there's obviously a lot of evidence here. And so, therefore, I would like to audit the code, all these hacks. If we're talking about, if a bank had any missing money at all, you would call it a bank examiner. But it's just because it's unrealized gray area, because it's a buried body that they're digging into and distributing energy. And so therefore there's a lot of gray areas to where nobody wants to open that Pandora's box of trying to figure out how. And so there's just a lot of different schemes. And the house of cards. They went from building a steel structure like the Steelers to a house of cards. And now they're desperate to protect it and figure ways to go beyond this sort of thing. So, we've gone into all of these variations of what is deemed practical and worshipped and all these things on a global perspective. That's where it gets into time also is expanding globally. And they won't, they're just wasting the prime of my life. And so therefore I can't take back what was taken from me. So the people that have picked my pocket are wasting my life to where I am unable to regain the energy that was drained from me. The natural energy, as they would deem it, because I was kidnapped, I was shot and left for dead, and they picked my pocket. That sort of mentality. So it's beyond all comprehension of what actually might be going on in any sort of realm of responsibility. But obviously, it was a setup from way back when. They were making me, it goes back to Groucho Marx, you bet your life. They take anything that is valued as far as people were obviously, there's something there. So we were shining lights. It was a siren. Hey, something's wrong. Let's shine a light. It's a warning sign. But the spin doctor gamblers decided we're going to play it. They wanted to charge it and play it. And the problem is they figured out that there are a bunch of fireworks. They're just shooting up fireworks. Nobody's ever going to come and rescue me to where they can, they'll point out, hey, something's really wrong here, what you're doing. We know what you're doing mentality. We'll shine a light on it. Who the fuck cares? Nobody's going to do anything about it. So then they figured out ways around it to where they're using it to their advantage. So they take what should have been if I would have had a competent structure built, then they would have been our advantage. But instead, because we're held like human shields, hostages, they can move us around and make us look like the dummies, whereas they're dodging they're using us as shields to block these lights. Or if there's something really wrong that is pointed out for historical reference, they will figure a way to screw around it or figure a way around it or to utilize it. And therefore, the problem is that we were just locked out with way too much perspective and circumstance. So there's no way to fix the entirety of and it's like an infection. The infection, well, what happens was the mob, like I said, they dragged us around or to affluent areas. And the Joker mentality, everybody just kind of sat back and watched their dogs screwing me. When in actuality, their pets were screwing them and they didn't even realize it. By screwing me, they were screwing them because they weren't really sure what they had. And so it turns out, though, because it was affecting global policy, because it was affecting this global bank of assets that was affecting global economic policy. So then when their pets were screwing me, they were actually screwing them. And so then they were involved. They were pro bono, co-conspirator, implicated, complacent, compliant to the scheme. So then their pets then had health insurance paid for by Master, who got a free Joker show, thought they were getting a little bestiality snuff porno film at my expense by locking me out. So the country club law, who locked somebody out worth potentially $1 billion because they were already spending my money via certain ways, so they were going to give their pets a chance to screw me for a while. It got worse and worse and worse. And their pets learned how to use me as steroids. So when they started using me as steroids, their pets started all these creations, these mutations got really, really big and strong because more money, more money, more money, more money, and photosynthesis was making them go bigger because the world started mutating to where it was worshiping strictly image. So now the cash is king, and the photosynthesis is making everything it's the popcorn mentality of, popcorn being big because corn is big because of corn chips and all sorts of things, ties into maize at the big house and all that sort of thing. Frosted cornflakes, all sorts of ties, these symbiotic synthesis ties, regardless of the legality of it, just based upon this brotherly camaraderie, which has no significance at all. Whereas the source, because of my global validity, is buried at the bottom, protect. So it's just gotten spiraled way out of control, and they've lost control. So now, because they really did, they just lost it. They lost all control. So now, the super rich or the affluent 1%, 2%, 3% who have a lot of the wealth in the country got screwed by their pets. They're now invested in the system. So now the pets are trying to screw the world so they can burn bridges to keep their master from jumping ship so they can keep all the money. Because it's all about this communal pot of money. Because what they do is they put it's this community chest of cash that is spent and utilized as validation. They pool it all together, and it seems to be pooled in various sources. Therefore, if you're plugged into this pool of cash, it gives you a lot of power. The pool of assets is being another formulated cash. So they start shifting around all these pools of cash and assets based upon these networks. So then, therefore, what they're doing, though, is they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger because of the math, the spiraling math that doesn't necessarily add up to any sort of conclusion because they are playing best ball. It's like if you got 100 people hit one ball in a fairway, and they go all over the place. I mean, you got a bunch of people, and that's even a lot. I mean, in actuality, the spread would be 360 in a lot of different. And so then you want to play the bullseye. You're playing the bullseye every time. All 100 people are playing the best of the best. So therefore, you're playing the bullseye every time. So rather than who cares, you just throw all the rest of them away. So then everybody hits from the bullseye. And then wherever they hit, they win the best of the best of the best. And so it's just this notation based upon playing best ball as far as there's no median average. While you're worshiping diplomas, whereas a lot of your suspect, because of, like I said, the purple grad robes of LSU. Therefore, everyone that has a purple robe, because I graduated from I didn't graduate from LSU, even though I supply a ton. I'm probably one of the biggest donors at LSU. I give more than anybody, and I get nothing. And I like it. That sort of caddyshack mentality. I get screwed the most, pay the most, and get nothing. And still, regardless of the sign, that's where they screwed up so bad. That's why they're run to the SEC, and they don't even know it. They got Mississippi was just bait. Mississippi at least can jump over and play the Georgia card, or whereas LSU has lost all their international money because Texas was coming in the back door, and Texas ran it up so much, and then Texas is playing sides between the Yankees and the South and the Midwest. They can play any sides because you let them. You gave them all. I mean, well, the thing was, because my degree, they've had control of mine and my sister's body for 20 plus years now. So therefore, they knew what they were doing. They built slaughterhouses. They built slaughterhouses for all of my assets, global. So that's why Europe's getting massacred, because Texas hates Europe. Texas absolutely hates Europe because there's not enough country bars and boots. They made a bunch of boots. So no, Texas, because they control, and we're talking about the path, and they're using me as a Jesus type metaphorical figure, but St. Louis. So they've taken my father's family, which, but this was historically this, divorce never happened. That's why probably the Pope quit. This is historically just out of this fucking world, stupid. And nobody did anything about it. None of the Catholics did anything about it. None of Louisiana did anything about it. They just keep I don't know what they thought was going on. They wanted to keep me small. And rather than, what they could have done was let me make enough money, but they were just addicted to screwing me and feeding me crap like that. I guarantee it's a life commercial with Mikey. Mikey likes it, and he don't like anything. So they wanted to shovel me the leftovers to prove that they were better than Ezra. That literally just beyond. Well, Baton Rouge, oh, so bad you can't even imagine how bad it was. They killed the state of Louisiana, literally. But nobody else in the state, nobody did anything about it. New Orleans and Baton Rouge are morons when you look at the perspective of it, because all they had to do was they should have hired us some counselors and sat us down and said, let's talk about all this evidence. We got a whole fucking university here. LSU, Tulane, and Loyola made some of the biggest mistakes in the history of the world. Tulane can jump ship, and they'll just be Tulane. That's what New York, one of the reasons New York can lock me out, they get Tulane. Loyola is Loyola. They can tie into Loyola Marymount, which they're paying a ton, or Loyola Chicago, or Loyola Maryland. LSU is going to play SEC. They're all just saying, well, what can we do other than, while they threw away literally billions and billions and billions of dollars and probably killed Europe for some Texas boots. So Texas got to turn Europe into a bunch of fucking boots. New York didn't give a fuck. New York said, go ahead, fuck them as much as you want, because we look like fucking heroes to them. They need us then, and they got control of the estate because Texas screwed them so bad. And the Republicans they just threw everything away to send George Bush to the beauty shop, without a doubt. They literally they went suicide bomber to beautify George. Is it because of a mirror? Please tell me you don't have. That's where it gets into this competent intellect. Regardless of you having a degree diploma, you still have to use science, math, logic. Just because you have a degree diploma and it's a purple robe, that's not infallibility. That's where it gets into. So, because I did not graduate, I used to skip a lot of classes at LSU. So then they wanted to, I've got to pay, I've got to make everyone, I'm lower than the paparazzi. They're going to make, they want me to be worse than the paparazzi. That's how pathetic this is. That's how they just keep, everyone matters more than me, because of everybody else is basically, that just means that the spread's all that much bigger to exploit. So they got the billions of dollars, and I've got pennies and JC pennies. So there's all that juice and meat in the middle for the mob to go out. Whereas the tip of the iceberg, the whole rest of the world thing is really crumbling bad. And that's where you get into the whole global cataclysm thing. And that's why they're desperate to cover up. Or it's going to be just fat fest, where everybody it's going to be build, regardless of the ramifications of population and global warming and all this stuff. So it's going to be it's bad politics. They need to fix the problem because eventually you're going to have to fix the problem. And I just think you ought to do it sooner than later. Just, the party's gone on way long enough. Before you ruin Latin America, before it gets just completely just torn apart with a bunch of terrible, terrible crap, then just, fix the problem. So, yeah, it's the systematic flaws that are the problem. So, lessons learned, this screwged effect. Because you have a key does not mean to the buffet, does not mean you get to. The problem is we've got, that's why there's this whole notion of you've got millions and millions of people that are acting like a group of titans, a few Olympus titans. So you've got these millions and millions and millions who are using this blood doping to turn into these humongous, and the way they get humongous is cash, cash, cash. And cash is king and gaming grids and all that sort of thing. So you've overloaded the system. And what you're doing is you're flooding the global economy. Thank God for atheist China. I mean, that's how bad things are. Really and truly, the world ought to be saying, thank God for atheist China. That's how bad this scenario really, really is. And that's a true statement. Without them as some sort of counterbalance to this insanity, as an alternative, even though they're crazy, nut job wackos. I mean, it is an alternative to just competitive eating. How fucking fat can you get and drown and choke your neighbors to death and smother your neighbor? How fat can you get and sit on your neighbor and smother them to fucking death to prove that you are the fucking Lord Master over them? That's what you're teaching. What the USA is, eat as much as you can, buy as much magic goods as you can, then go sit on your whoever else and smother them and prove that you're the master wrestling. That's literally what the example, metaphorically, of what goes on. And I provide the energy. I apologize. I'm trying to fix it to a degree, but I'm not allowed to because people are addicted, have problems with their eating habits, their drug habits, their gambling habits, and their spending habits. So, I'm trying to cut off all these credit cards, but people just say, well, we're just going to play the gray area. We're going to, it's beyond all any sorts of things. So, the math logic is, you've got to figure a way to beyond. Just because you got the key doesn't mean what got you the key is suspect. So you got a diploma degree key. So that does not give you carte blanche to be a creator of a universe creator. That's the problem there. Because you got a purple robe or this cap and gown, that does not give you the right to go out and screw things up on your little plot. Because those plots have effects, cause and effects to them. And so, therefore, when you're, it's just bad business, bad science and bad math that's using the infallibility of the Bible as a weapon to sink others and to prove that they are not wrong because they just can't be wrong. So, hopefully that's some sort of entertainment.